Tonight, imagine yourself crouching at the edge of a low cliff. The air sharp with the smell of crushed stone. The sky is pale, dawn barely rising, and the ground beneath your hand is cool, gritty, damp from last night's dew. You press a pebble to the rock face before you and drag it downward. The sound is harsh, a scratch, a shriek of stone against stone. But when you lean back, you see it, a line, stubborn and deliberate, carved by your hand, a mark that was not there yesterday, a mark that might outlive you. You'd probably never make it through a single prehistoric morning, but don't worry, I'll guide you safely through. So, before we go any further, if this quiet company helps, you can gently tap like and subscribe, but only if it feels right to your heart. And hey, I'd love to know where you're listening from, maybe lying awake in New York, or drifting in a quiet room in London. Drop your time and place below, so none of us feel alone tonight. Now, dim the lights, let your shoulders relax, and let's begin tonight's slow, strange journey together here on Timeless Sleep. The line you scratched into the stone is not food, nor shelter, nor weapon. It feeds no one, protects nothing, and yet it matters. Across Africa, Europe, Asia, archaeologists uncover stones from hundreds of thousands of years ago etched with zigzags, crosshatches, spirals. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, a piece of ochre bears a delicate grid pattern more than 70,000 years old. At Trinilil in Java, a freshwater shell carved with a chevron design may be almost 500,000 years old, perhaps even the work of Homo erectus. The marks are not accidents. They are deliberate, symmetrical, persistent. Someone cared enough to leave behind more than survival. Why? Perhaps to pass time, perhaps to practice, perhaps to mark ownership, or perhaps, and here belief trembles into art, to create meaning. A scratched line could stand for water, a spiral for the sun, a zigzag for lightning. To make marks is to say, this thing exists in my mind, and I put it here for others to see. It is not yet painting, not yet story, but it is symbol, and once symbols are born, humanity cannot turn back. Picture a group huddled in a shallow cave, the wind rattling grass outside. A child scratches at a bone with a sharp flake, making lines that serve no use but catch the eye. An elder notices, smiles, and copies the gesture on another stone. Soon there are marks everywhere, parallel lines, repeating dots, scratches curved into crude spirals. No one calls it art. Yet in their repetition lies memory. These people are not just living, they are leaving traces. The act itself is addictive. To drag stone across stone to see light catch a new line, to feel the groove under fingertip, it sparks curiosity. Children return to the same spot, making patterns again and again. And though the impulse is serious, humor seeps in. Imagine a man carving carefully, only for his friend to add a silly line across it. A crooked nose, a dangling tail. The group laughs, the solemnity broken. Even here, in the first scratchings of meaning, humans joke. Perhaps that joke survives. Centuries later, etched on the same rock, a doodle that was never erased. Over time, the scratch becomes more than decoration. It becomes ritual. Before a hunt, someone carves a line into the stone, a gesture meant to call luck. After a death, someone marks spirals onto a bone, as though guiding the spirit onward. These gestures are not yet full stories, but they are symbols linked to meaning. Art and belief are born in the same gesture. The surfaces themselves gain importance. Certain rocks are chosen again and again, their faces layered with scratches from generations. Some are placed deliberately in caves or shelters, as if to guard memory. When we find them now, their grooves are worn smooth, but their intent still hums. We were here, we marked this place. We made meaning from stone. At first glance, the marks seem small compared to later cave paintings or carved statues, but they are monumental in another way. They reveal symbolic thought. To scratch zigzags is to imagine a world beyond immediate hunger and shelter. It is to abstract, to play with pattern, to care about permanence. These marks are the threshold between mere survival and art. And so the story of humanity's first artistry begins, not with grand frescoes, but with the humblest of lines. They are tentative, fragile, but also radical. They say, I exist, I think, I remember. To carve a mark is to resist silence, to speak in stone, and in that speech, art is born. We still feel this impulse. Children today scratch doodles into desks, carve initials into trees, scrawl graffiti on walls. The act is older than writing, older than civilization. It is the same heartbeat that pulsed in Blombos cave and on Java's shells, the need to leave a trace. And from these small beginnings the flood of art will come. The scratches will become handprints, the handprints herds of animals, the animals entire myths. The zigzags will grow into alphabets, the spirals into mandalas, the hatches into calendars. But the essence is here. In the first mark, art begins when someone says, this line is more than a line. It means something. So, as you drift toward rest, imagine yourself kneeling in a cave thousands of years ago, stone in hand, scratching the surface with care. You lean back, see the mark glint in firelight, feel a thrill of permanence. You laugh when your friend adds a crooked tail. You sigh when your child copies your pattern. You know that tomorrow the mark will still be there, whispering your presence to anyone who looks. And in that whisper is the beginning of art, the first fragile spark of human creativity. The scratch on stone lingers in memory, but the story of art moves swiftly beyond the hard lines of flint. Long before brushes or chisels, humans discovered a softer medium, the earth itself, ground into powder, smeared across skin, bone, and stone. Red ochre, the dusty pigment pulled from veins of iron-rich earth, became the first true color of humanity. Its presence stretches back at least 100,000 years, found on artifacts in South Africa, on bones in burials, on shells strung into necklaces. With ochre, humanity's art was no longer only line and groove. It was color, symbol, and meaning pressed directly onto the world. Imagine crouching in a shallow cave, grinding a lump of iron oxide between stones. The dust puffs red, staining your fingers like blood. Mixed with fat or water, it becomes paste, smeared thick across a hand or a tool. The moment feels magical. Skin that was pale or dark now glows crimson. Stone that was dull now shines with life. The transformation sparks delight, even laughter, but also awe. For red is the color of blood, fire, life itself. To paint with ochre is to borrow the essence of vitality, to wear the power of life upon the body. Archaeologists at Blombos cave have found ochre etched with deliberate patterns, as if pigment was not only tool but symbol. Some pieces are cross-hatched, others lined with geometric precision. These scratches are not accidents, they are marks of intention. It is as if the ochre itself was treated as sacred, not only used for color, but also honored as object. To carve on pigment is to say, even the material of art deserves art. The use of ochre spreads wide. In burials, bodies are dusted with red, skeletons glowing as though cloaked in fire. Some archaeologists suggest this was resurrection painted in pigment. To cover the dead in ochre was to cover them in the color of life, as though ensuring they would not vanish, but rise again. Others think it marked passage, painting the body for its journey into another world. Whatever the purpose, the gesture tells us this. Ochre was more than decoration, it was belief, pressed into dust and bone. Ochre also marked the living, Hunters streaked lines across their faces before setting out, perhaps to invoke strength, perhaps to intimidate prey, perhaps simply to feel transformed. Shamans painted their chests, their arms, their eyelids, glowing red in firelight as they danced. Children smeared pigment playfully, becoming little animals or spirits in the eyes of their peers. To wear ochre was to step into another identity, not just yourself, but something more. And yes, humor found its way here. Picture a young man painted solemnly for a hunt, his chest gleaming red. As he steps proudly into the circle, a child giggles and points out that the streaks resemble a donkey's ears. Laughter ripples through the group. The hunter flushes, hard to tell under so much pigment, and joins the laughter. Even sacred color could become the butt of a joke. Ritual was serious, but humans never let it stay too serious for long. The pigment itself was prized. Groups traveled miles to gather it, digging into earth, chipping at rocks, hauling lumps back to camp. Some ochre came from far away, evidence of early trade. A bead made from local shell might be stained with pigment from another valley, proof that art moved where people moved, carrying meaning across landscapes. The journey for ochre was itself pilgrimage, the act of gathering already part of ritual. It was also innovation. Different mixes created different shades. Deep maroon, rusty orange, bright crimson. Mixed with fat, ochre became paint. Mixed with water, it became wash. Mixed with resin, it stuck like glue. Humans experimented, tested, played. In their hands, earth became palette. The impulse was not only to survive, but to adorn, to color, to beautify. Ochre-coated tools as well. Spears were rubbed with pigment, perhaps for grip, perhaps for ritual, perhaps both. Grinding stones were stained red from years of use, suggesting pigment preparation was constant, not occasional. Shell beads drilled for necklaces were often coated, their surfaces glowing red. To wear such beads was to carry art on the body, to turn yourself into living canvas. The symbolism deepened. Red could mean blood, sacrifice, vitality, danger. A hunter painted red might look fiercer, a shaman brighter, a corpse more alive. Over time, the associations thickened into myth. Some tribes believed red marked rebirth, others protection. The color became language, a wordless story told in strokes and stains. Consider a burial where a child's bones were found covered in ochre, tiny beads scattered across the grave. The pigment turns bones into flame, the beads into stars. For the grieving parents, this was not just farewell but promise. The child would shine again, somewhere beyond. The ochre is not practical, but grief has never been practical. It is symbolic, and symbols are the heart of art. What makes ochre astonishing is its universality. From Africa to Australia, from Europe to Asia, humans used it. Separated by oceans, divided by millennia, they still turn to red pigment as sacred. It was not coincidence. It was instinct. Across the species, we share a fascination with color, with symbol, with transformation. Ochre is the common thread of humanity's first art, and it persists. Red is still our color of passion, danger, vitality. We paint it on lips, wear it on flags, use it to mark warnings, weddings, wars. From ochre to lipstick, from cave burial to cathedral robe, the lineage is unbroken. The pigment of the earth still stains our rituals, our bodies, our beliefs. Archaeologists find pieces of ochre worn smooth, as if handled again and again. Perhaps carried in pouches, touched in moments of fear or prayer. Pigment became talisman, not only for group, but for individual. Imagine fingering a lump of ochre in your pocket before a hunt, feeling reassurance as your skin stains red. The gesture is private, but the meaning is deep. Art becomes not only communal but personal, So the story of art in ochre is this. Humanity turned dirt into symbol. We found in earth the color of life, and with it we painted bodies, bones, beads, and belief. It was not survival, but something more. It was expression, memory, identity, hope. With ochre, humans learned that the world could be altered, beautified, symbolized. With ochre, art gained color, and color gained soul. So tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine yourself grinding stone into dust, mixing it with spit or fat, smearing it across your hand. You press your hand to the cave wall, pull it back, and there it is, your palm glowing in red, a mark of your presence, your life. It is art, it is symbol, it is memory, and as the firelight flickers across the wall, you know it will remain after you, whispering your existence to the future. The firelight flickers behind you, sending shadows that shiver along the walls. The air cools as you step deeper into the cavern, each breath carrying the scent of damp stone and smoke. Your torch spits and crackles, and suddenly the tunnel opens into a wide chamber where the ceiling arches like a sky of rock. Here, on the walls, you notice something both simple and profound: handprints. Dozens of them scattered like constellations across stone, some large, some tiny, some clear, some blurred. Red, black, white. It feels as though the cave itself is holding hands with you across thousands of years. The technique is deceptively simple. A person presses their hand flat against the wall, then blows pigment over it. Red ochre, black charcoal, white clay. When the hand is pulled away, the outline remains, a ghostly print, human yet not, absence turned into presence. These are not fingerprints, they are declarations. To leave your hand behind is to say, I was here, I belong, remember me. Some prints are clustered together, layered, overlapping. It's as if entire families pressed their palms in sequence, leaving generations marked in stone. Others stand alone, stark and solitary, isolated in corners, as though set apart with special meaning. One wall in Argentina's Cueva de las Manos, the Cave of Hands, is covered in hundreds of prints, an overwhelming chorus of silent voices. Standing before them, you feel surrounded by ancestors you never met, a crowd of people who once whispered, laughed, breathed, and decided to leave their mark. Archaeologists puzzle over their purpose. Were the print signatures a way to claim space? Were they ritual, an initiation for the young, a test of belonging? Or were they prayers, each hand a plea to spirits, each outline a bridge to the divine? No single answer satisfies. Perhaps they were all these things and more, for meaning often exceeds explanation, and art rarely obeys one reason alone. Picture a young child, barely able to reach the wall. An elder lifts them, steadying their small arm. Pigment dust is blown, the hand pulled away, and there it is, the child's first handprint, glowing red against stone. The group cheers, the child beams, perhaps giggles, and the mark remains. In that moment, belonging is confirmed. You are one of us now. Your hand joins our wall. Your life joins our story. Humor, too, had its place. Some prints of missing fingers, not from accident but deliberate. Were they signs, codes, or jokes? A person tucking fingers away as pigment sprayed, leaving behind a strange three-fingered print. Imagine the laughter that followed. Look, spirits with claws live among us. Even in solemn ritual, mischief sneaked in. The handprint could carry fear, reverence, or play. And then there are the stencils deep in caves, placed far beyond ordinary reach. Some are high on ceilings, requiring ladders or perches, others in narrow passages where crawling was necessary. To leave a hand there was not convenience, it was pilgrimage. Imagine crawling through darkness, torchlight guttering, your chest scraping stone, until you emerge in a cramped chamber. You press your hand, blow pigment, and leave your ghost upon the wall. Then you crawl back, heart racing, knowing few will ever see it. But the spirits will. The act itself was offering, sacrifice of effort, proof of devotion. The handprint also transforms the wall. Stone becomes skin, surface becomes body. To place your hand is to merge with the earth, to join your flesh to the rock. When you leave the outline, you fuse your presence with the cave. The wall is no longer inert. It is alive with touch, alive with human presence. The cave itself becomes community, dwelling of both stone and spirit. Over time, handprints gather like archives. One generation adds their palms, then the next, then the next. The wall becomes layered with memory, a library not of words but of gestures. To stand before it is to stand before history, not written, not carved, but breathed onto stone. The prints are both art and ancestry, both individual and collective. The universality of handprints astonishes. From Europe to South America to Indonesia, caves bear these marks, separated by oceans, millennia apart. Humans everywhere chose the same gesture. The instinct is shared, the desire to leave one's hand behind, to transform flesh into symbol, to whisper across time, I am here. It is as though the human hand itself demanded recognition, demanded to be remembered. And isn't it still the same? Children today press painted palms onto paper in classrooms, proud of their messy art. Lovers trace hands into wet sand. Tourists press palms into concrete at famous landmarks. We still want to leave imprints, still feel comfort in the outline of a hand. The impulse is timeless, unbroken from cave to city. The handprints also suggest equality. Unlike statues of kings or carvings of elites, they belong to everyone. Men, women, children all left marks. The cave wall is democratic. Every hand has place. In this sense, the earliest art was not hierarchical but communal, not exclusive but inclusive. The cave was not gallery of a few, but chorus of many. Some anthropologists note how powerful the negative image is, the hand absent but present, outlined by what is not there. It's a reminder that art began not by filling space, but by framing absence. The handprint is both self and shadow, both presence and void. To look at it is to feel someone's breath, their flesh, their gesture, even as they are long gone. It is absence, turned into eternal presence, and perhaps this is why the prints move us so deeply. They are not animals or symbols, but human touch itself, preserved in pigment. To place your hand against one now, to feel the stone beneath, is to touch someone across tens of thousands of years. The distance collapses, time thins. You and the maker share one gesture, one breath, one desire. Picture yourself in such a cave, torch in hand, standing before a wall, alive with hands. You press your palm against a red outline, feel the grit of stone beneath skin. For a moment, you cannot tell where your hand ends, and theirs begins. You feel their laughter, their fear, their awe. You know they too sought to be remembered, to belong, to leave a trace. And you realize art is not only beauty, art is survival of memory. The cave grows dark again, your torch sputtering. The prints vanish back into shadow, but their presence lingers. You carry them in your mind, their ghostly outlines glowing as though stamped on your eyelids. You know now why they pressed their hands, why they breathed pigment, why they mark stone. To be human is to mark, to declare, to remember. And in those hands, scattered like stars, we see the first constellations of art. The hands fade back into shadow as you carry your torch deeper, the air growing heavier, your breath louder in the hollow dark. You round a corner, and suddenly the walls are alive. Herds of bison stampede across the stone, their shoulders massive, their horns sharp. Horses rear with flared nostrils. manes bristling. Stags lower antlers like crowns. Mammoths lumber with curved tusks. Painted in ochre, charcoal, and clay, the beasts shimmer in flickering light. With each sway of the flame, they seem to move, galloping, charging, turning their heads to watch you. The cave is no longer stone. It is meadow, plain, forest. Here, animals walk eternal. The caves of Chauvet, Altamira, and Lascaux reveal this astonishing artistry. Tens of thousands of years ago, people painted with skill that still stuns us today. Horses at Chauvet are drawn with delicate shading, overlapping lines giving them depth and motion. At Lascaux, bulls tower over the viewer, some nearly 20 feet long, drawn with bold outlines that pulse with power. These are not clumsy sketches. They are masterpieces, their precision matched only by their vitality. Even without brushes or canvas, early humans captured life with an intensity that rivals any later art. Why paint animals? Perhaps as hunting magic, to summon herds, to ensure success, to trap spirits in pigment before spears flew. Perhaps as reverence, honoring creatures that gave food, clothing, tools, life. Perhaps as story, retelling hunts, teaching children, remembering abundance. Whatever the reason, the animals dominate. Few humans appear on the walls. It is the beasts who reign, their bodies filling the caves, their spirits filling imagination. The act of painting was ritual itself. Pigment ground from stone, mixed with fat or spit, applied with fingers, brushes of hair, pads of moss. Torches smoked, flames flickered, shadows danced. Painters crawled into cramped passages, balanced on ledges, leaned close to stone. They breathed color into walls, and in return the walls breathed life. Imagine the thrill. You smear pigment on rough stone, step back and see a bison emerge, powerful and strange, staring back at you. Creation must have felt like magic. The placement mattered. Some animals cluster where the cave echoes, where sound amplifies. Perhaps chants were sung here, the voices of humans merging with painted beasts. In torchlight, shadows flickered across lines, making herds stampede, making horses gallop. The cave itself became theatre, the paintings alive in performance of fire and sound. Humor found its place too. In some caves, animals are painted with exaggerated features, a horse with absurdly long mane, a bison with comically fat belly. Were these mistakes or jokes? Picture a group chuckling as someone paints a plump deer, nudging each other. That one won't outrun us. Even amid awe, laughter colored the ritual, reminding all that art was as human as jest. Some animals overlap, painted one atop another. At first it looks chaotic, but perhaps this layering was deliberate, a way to show movement, herds, seasons passing, or perhaps each generation returned to the same wall, adding new beasts, layering memory upon memory. The walls became palimpsests, archives of centuries, a chorus of animals whispering through time, and sometimes the animals merge with symbols, dots, lines, grids, a stag's body covered with patterns, a horse's flank marked with spirals. Were these maps, calendars, ritual codes? The truth is elusive, but the presence of abstraction alongside realism tells us this. Art was not only imitation, it was also imagination, a way to fuse what was seen with what was dreamed. Consider the emotional power. To stand before a painted bull by torchlight is to feel small, humbled, awed. To see it in motion as shadows flicker is to feel you are in the hunt, in the herd, in the sacred. For those who painted and those who watched, the experience must have been overwhelming, a communion of fear, beauty, reverence. Religion and art blurred, becoming indistinguishable. Some caves bear footprints, both of children and adults, pressed into the clay floors near painted walls. Imagine children following elders, their wide eyes glowing in torchlight, their small feet leaving imprints as they watched animals come alive. For them, these caves were not only sacred but school, teaching both survival and belief. They grew up knowing art was essential as food, story as essential as fire. Animals chosen were often those most important: horses, bison, mammoths, deer, but sometimes lions, rhinoceroses, owls appear. Creatures rarely hunted, sometimes dangerous, sometimes untouchable. Why? Perhaps these animals symbolized forces beyond reach, predators to be respected, mysteries to be honored. To paint them was not about meat, but about meaning. They were powers incarnate, spirits in fur and feather. Painting animals also expressed intimacy. Hunters knew every curve of muscle, every flick of tail, every glint in an eye. They stalked these creatures, depended on them, feared them. To paint them was to fix that relationship, to honor and control, to celebrate and to pray. Art was born not in detachment but in closeness, in living alongside beasts. And so the caves became sanctuaries, not homes, not ordinary shelters, but sacred galleries, entered only for ritual. To step inside was to leave daily life, to enter the realm of story. The animals on the walls were not mere decoration, they were presences, companions, guardians. To touch them was to touch the sacred. We still feel this today. We hang paintings of animals, wear them on emblems, tell stories of their symbolism. Horses still stand for freedom, lions for strength, owls for wisdom. The cave paintings were not only beginnings of art, they were beginnings of meaning that endures still. Imagine yourself now, torch in hand, standing in a cavern where bulls surge across the wall, their horns sharp, their bodies straining. You hear chants behind you, the shuffle of dancers, the hum of oar. You paint a line across stone, and suddenly a horse leaps forth, alive in firelight. You step back, trembling. The cave breathes with you. You are not alone. The animals are here, eternal, painted into memory, painted into belief. As the torch fades, the beasts melt back into shadow. Yet their presence lingers in your mind, their hooves echoing, their eyes glowing. You know why your ancestors painted them. Not to pass time, not to decorate, but to ensure the world was more than silence. To paint animals was to speak with them, to invite them into story, to live with them forever. The beat of hands and feet lingers in the air, echoing like a second heartbeat. But soon another sound joins it, one thinner, lighter, more haunting. It is not clap or stamp, but a breath made visible through sound. Someone lifts a hollow bird bone, holes cut along its length, and blows. A note rises, sharp and trembling. Another adjusts their fingers, and a second note follows. The fire hushes, the dancers pause. In that fragile moment, the first melody unfurls across the night, the song of bone flutes. Archaeologists have uncovered these flutes in caves across Europe, some more than 40,000 years old. In Germany's Hohlefels cave, a vulture wing bone carved with finger holes lies silent, yet when reconstructed, it plays scales still recognizable today. In another cave, mammoth ivory has been split, hollowed, and fitted back together to create a delicate instrument. These are not toys. They require skill to carve and precision to tune. Whoever made them cared deeply about sound. Not only beat, but pitch, melody, music. Imagine the discovery. Someone blows across a hollow bone and hears a whistle. They experiment, carve holes, adjust their grip. Suddenly, the whistle shifts, climbs, falls. A new world opens, where rhythm was body, melody is spirit. Rhythm binds, but melody lifts. It carries emotion higher than words. piercing deeper than beat. The first flutes must have stunned their listeners, leaving them breathless at the strange ghostly voice that seemed not human but otherworldly. The sound itself is uncanny. Thin, high, echoing in caves. It must have felt like spirit song, like ancestors breathing through stone, like birds made eternal. To play flute in darkness was to conjure the invisible, to bridge human and divine. No wonder many of these instruments are found deep in ritual spaces, not ordinary camps. They were not for daily tunes, they were for sacred sound. Picture a shaman standing in flickering torchlight, flute at lips. A note trembles, floats echoes off stone. The cave becomes cathedral, the listeners transfixed. The shaman bends notes, imitates bird calls, mimics wind. The people shiver, some laugh nervously, others weep. The music feels alive, as though the air itself speaks. In that moment, art and magic are indistinguishable. Of course, humor found its place, even here. Imagine a novice, flautist blowing too hard, squeaking shrill, the group clutching ears, children giggle, imitating the screech. The sacred becomes ridiculous, but even this strengthens the bond. Soon the shaman steadies breath, the flute sings again, and awe returns. Laughter and reverence dance side by side, as they always have. Flutes required more than accident. Carving finger holes demanded foresight, practice, trial and error. Some bones show false starts, abandoned attempts. Others are polished smooth from use, suggesting long practice. Music demanded dedication, patience, skill. To play flute was not casual, it was craft. It showed that art was no longer impulse but discipline, honed through years, taught from elder to youth. The choice of bones mattered too. Bird bones, hollow and light, offered resonance. Mammoth ivory required splitting and joining with precision, far more difficult. To work ivory into flute was feat of both artistry and technology. The instruments reveal ingenuity as much as creativity. They show that music was worth the effort, worth the risk of breaking precious materials. Sound itself had value. The melodies must have been simple. A few notes, short phrases, yet simplicity does not mean weakness. A scale can enchant, a trill can pierce, a drone can mesmerize. Listeners unaccustomed to melody would have heard not noise but miracle. Music lifted them into emotion too deep for speech. Joy, grief, longing, awe. The flute gave voice to feelings unnamed. Flutes also linked humans to birds. To imitate their songs was to borrow nature's music, to claim kinship with creatures of air. Perhaps bird calls on flute lured prey, or perhaps they honored feathered spirits. Either way, the sound collapsed distance between human and animal, natural and supernatural. To play flute was to join a choir that already filled the world. Wind, water, bird, breath. Some instruments bore wear at finger holes, polished by decades of playing. This suggests continuity, teaching, tradition. Children must have watched elders play, then tried themselves, stumbling at first, squeaking, then mastering. Over generations, music became heritage, passed down like myth or symbol. Art was no longer only communal ritual, but personal skill, identity carried in sound. Imagine again the setting. A cave lit by fire, paintings of animals glowing on walls, hands stenciled in red, and now flute notes echoing overhead. Visual, tactile, auditory, all senses merged. The cave became total artwork, Gesamtkunstwerk of prehistory, where humans enveloped themselves in art that was not separate from life, but fused with it. To live was to create, to surround oneself with meaning, color, sound. We still hear echoes. Flutes remain among our oldest instruments, their sound haunting in orchestras, in folk songs, in lullabies. Children learn to blow across holes in school, squeaking as their ancestors once did. The bird's call in music is not accident, but memory, stretching back to when bird bones first sang in caves. We play still because they played first, because sound once lifted them beyond survival, and music still feels sacred. A single note on flute in a concert hall hushes crowds, moves hearts, draws tears. The power is unchanged. Rhythm steadies, melody moves. Together they form music, the first universal language, born of bone and breath. It still carries us into silence or transcendence. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, imagine holding a delicate bird bone to your lips. You blow softly, adjust fingers, and suddenly the air sings. The cave walls shimmer with echo. Your people hush. The fire dims. For a moment you feel not hunter, not gatherer, not mortal, but vessel of sound. Music moves through you, into others, into stone, and in that fragile melody, humanity learns that art is not only seen or touched, it is heard, it is felt, it is eternal. The painted herds fade into shadow as you leave the cave and step into the wide night. Above you, stars burn in clusters, and below, the earth hums with crickets, rustling grass, distant animal calls. The air is alive with sound, and soon you notice your people are alive with it too. A hand claps, another answers. Feet stamp against hard earth, sticks strike in rhythm, voices hum, rise, falter, rise again. There are no words, no instruments yet, but there is beat, and in that beat lies the seed of something immense, the first music, the first rhythm, the first art of sound. Picture the circle forming around fire. Flames snap, sparks lift like fleeting stars, and bodies move closer together. Someone claps, slow at first, then faster, and soon others join. Palms sting, chests thrum, hearts quicken. The rhythm spreads until the entire group moves as one body, bound by pulse. This is no idle noise. It is communion, a unifying heartbeat carried by hands and feet. Sound becomes more than accident. It becomes ritual. Archaeologists suggest rhythm was our earliest music, older even than melody. Before flutes or strings, there was percussion. Hands striking, feet stomping, stones tapping, sticks knocking. Such sounds require no invention beyond body and earth, and yet their power is vast. To clap together is to synchronize hearts, to dissolve loneliness, to create a group from scattered individuals. In rhythm, community is born. Rhythm also carries magic. Shamans use it to slip into trance. Steady beats, lulling minds into altered states. Hunters mimic hoofbeats with sticks, calling herds closer in imagination. Children stamp and clap until they fall into laughter, their energy spent. Rhythm, simple as it is, carries memory, emotion, transformation. It is art that needs no pigment, only pulse. Imagine the discovery. Two stones struck together, the crack echoing like thunder. Someone tries again, then again, shaping a pattern. Others join with claps and stomps, voices layering hums atop beats. The night fills with sound that is not accident, but intention. For the first time, humans are not only listeners of nature's noise, they are creators of music. Soon, rhythm organizes itself into ritual. Before hunts, the group gathers, stamping in circles, chanting. The steady beat steadies nerves, binds courage. Before storms, they drum with sticks, echoing thunder, pleading for mercy. Before births, they clap and hum, coaxing new life with pulse. Each rhythm becomes more than entertainment. It is prayer, spell, offering. Sound itself becomes sacred. And still, humor persists. Imagine a young man drumming earnestly on a hollow log, only for the log to crack beneath him. The beat dies abruptly, and the group bursts into laughter. Another mimics his flustered expression, pounding on the earth with exaggerated solemnity. The rhythm resumes, stronger than before. Even in reverence, humans cannot resist play. Archaeological sites reveal traces of this sonic art. In ancient floors where marks suggest dancing circles stamped the same earth repeatedly, stones worn smooth by tapping, bones split not for marrow but hollowed into rattles, show rhythm preserved in object. Though no sound remains for us, the evidence whispers. They played, they drummed, they beat life into ritual. Rhythm also aids memory. Words alone are fragile, but chant them with beat and they endure. A story told in rhythm sticks longer. A lesson sung is remembered by children. Perhaps this is why myth and music fused early. Stories were not only told but chanted, carried by rhythm through generations. The first teachers were not lecturers but drummers, singers, chanters. Think of the power in the dark. When fear presses in, predators near, storms looming. A group claps and stamps in unison. The noise grows, filling silence, defying danger. The sound is shield as much as song, courage as much as art. To create rhythm is to say, we are here, together, louder than fear. Over time, rhythm becomes layered. Some clap fast, others slow, creating polyrhythms that shimmer. Voices hum above, weaving patterns. What began as beat becomes music, not yet melody but harmony of sound. The community learns complexity, learns to listen, learns to coordinate. Art teaches discipline, cooperation, patience. In sound, culture grows, and rhythm moves bodies. As beats grow steady, hips sway, feet shuffle, arms lift, dance, and rhythm are born as twins, each feeding the other. Movement sharpens rhythm, rhythm fuels movement. Together they create performance, theatre, spectacle. Around the fire, humans become not only listeners but performers, actors in their own sacred symphony. Even the earth joins. Hollow logs become drums, shells become rattles, bones filled with pebbles shake like rain. Each discovery adds new texture, new voice. Instruments are born not from plan but from play, from accident. A child shakes a shell and hears music. An elder strikes bone and hears beat. The world becomes orchestra. Every object potential instrument. Rhythm shapes identity too. One group stamps fast, another slow. One claps in threes, another in fours. Patterns distinguish tribes as surely as ochre on faces. To know the rhythm is to know who you are. To join it is to declare belonging. To miss it is to mark yourself outsider. Sound becomes signature as much as symbol. And even now, the impulse persists. At concerts, crowds clap in unison. At games, feet stamp stadiums into thunder. Children bang spoons on pots with glee. Rhythm is instinct, older than melody, deeper than language. It is heartbeat externalized, community made audible. We do it still, because we cannot not do it. Rhythm is humanity's oldest addiction. So tonight, as your breath slows, imagine yourself in that ancient circle. The fire glows, shadows leap, the night presses close. You clap, hesitant at first, then steady. Others join, and soon the air vibrates with rhythm. Your feet stamp, your body sways, your heart beats in time. Fear melts, laughter rises, awe deepens. You are no longer one voice, but part of many, part of a chorus older than memory. And as the rhythm fades, silence returns, yet your chest still thumps, your palms still tingle, your ears still hum. You lie down by the fire, eyes heavy, heart steady. The beat echoes on inside you, carrying you into dreams. For once rhythm began, It never ceased, the world itself beats, and in its pulse we are always home. The flute's last notes fade into silence, and for a moment the cave holds its breath. Then, as if released, someone stamps a foot against the earth. Another answers, clapping hands in rhythm. Soon bodies sway, arms lift, hips twist. The circle around the fire stirs alive once more, this time not with painting or melody, but with movement. Dance, as old as rhythm, as vital as breath, unfurls in the firelight. Where flutes sing of spirit, dance speaks through flesh. It is art that cannot be kept on walls or carved into bone. It exists only in the body, in the moment, in the shared space between people and flame. Picture the scene. Flames leap high, shadows stretch across walls. Children spin with shrieks of laughter, elders step heavy, steady, their feet pounding time. Hunters mimic the chase, crouching, leaping, thrusting spears at imagined prey. Women swirl in arcs, their skirts of fur and hide brushing sparks, their arms wide like wings. The air pulses with sound and movement, the group moving as one. Dance is no performance for outsiders. It is participation, communion. To sit still would be stranger than to join. The steps often imitate the world. A hunter bends low, shoulders hunched, mimicking a lion's prowl. Another leaps high, stamping hooves like deer, calling the herd's spirit closer. The dancers circle, chase, collapse, rise. In each gesture lies symbolism. Storm, hunt, birth, death. Dance becomes storytelling without words. A theatre of muscle and breath. It encodes memory into motion, history into sway, belief into spin. The rhythm deepens, and with it, trance. As feet pound, hearts race, breath quickens, sweat slicks bodies, eyes widen, some tremble, others laugh wildly. In exhaustion, barriers dissolve, the self softens, dissolves into group. You are no longer I, you are we. The circle carries you, the rhythm owns you, the fire envelops you. This is why dance belongs to ritual. It alters state, transforms mind, bridges worlds. In movement, humans become more than themselves, and still, laughter weaves through. Picture a man stumbling, tripping on his own feet. The circle erupts in chuckles, children imitating his clumsy step until it becomes new pattern. Soon the mistake is tradition, a comic step folded into the sacred. Even solemnity makes room for play. Belief never chases away humor, it absorbs it, knowing joy binds as tightly as awe. Archaeological evidence hints at this communal movement. In some caves, clay floors are pressed with circles of footprints, small and large, layered from repeated stamping. In others, soot marks on ceilings suggest torches waved in spirals, their light dancing alongside bodies. Even figurines with outstretched arms may be echoes of dancers frozen in miniature. Though the dance itself is lost, the traces remain, rhythm written not on stone but on earth itself. Dance also serves healing. The sick are placed at the center, the circle moving around them, stamping, chanting, sweating. The group's energy focuses inward, willing the spirit to strengthen. Whether the cure is physical or psychological matters little. To be danced for is to be loved, supported, carried. Healing is as much about belief as about medicine, and dance delivers both. Other dances prepare warriors. Before battle, hunters paint faces, smear ochre on chests, and move in unison. Spears thrust, feet stamp, chants rise. The rhythm burns fear, sharpens courage. By the end, warriors are not individuals but one force, their bodies united, their breaths synchronized. Dance transforms fear into ferocity, weakness into solidarity. Dances mark life's thresholds too. A child's first steps may be celebrated with a small circle. Adolescents may endure initiation dances, stamping until they collapse, proving endurance. Weddings are marked by partners circling fire, death by mourners swaying in grief. Each stage of life is folded into ritual, each ritual carried by movement. Dance is calendar, ceremony, scripture written in steps, and because dance is ephemeral, it must be repeated. Unlike paintings which endure on walls, or flutes which can be passed down, dance vanishes the moment it ends. Its permanence lies in repetition. Each new circle reenacts the old, carrying memory not in pigment or sound, but in muscle. Bodies become archives, traditions kept alive in motion. Even now we echo it. Weddings swell with dance, funerals with processions, festivals with swaying crowds, stadiums thunder with stamping feet, concerts pulse with swaying arms. We still turn to movement when words fail, when emotions swell, when community demands expression. The instinct to dance is not culture alone, it is humanity itself. Consider too the universality of circle dance. Across continents, across millennia, the pattern repeats, humans forming rings, moving in rhythm, circling fire, circling sky. Why circle? Because it has no edge, no leader. Everyone belongs. Everyone shares the same distance from the center. Circle is democracy of movement, the shape of equality. It says we are one. Shamans often stand at the center, swaying, trembling, entering trance. Around them, the circle spins faster, feeding energy inward. The shaman quivers, gasps, sometimes collapses. When they rise, their voice carries gods, ancestors, spirits. The dancers bridge them, body dissolving into channel. Whether or not the spirits truly come, the group believes, and belief itself heals, binds, sustains. Even in solitude, the impulse endures. Alone, a hunter may stamp quietly, swaying, humming. Alone, a child may twirl until dizzy. Dance is not always spectacle. Sometimes it is prayer whispered by the body. Movement itself can soothe fear, celebrate joy, process grief. The body does not need audience. It needs release. And perhaps that is why dance is so powerful. Unlike paintings, it leaves no artifact. Unlike flutes, no sound remains. But in the act itself, it gives more than both. Presence, unity, transcendence. To dance is to live art directly, to make body itself canvas, brush, performance. It requires nothing but breath and rhythm, yet it gives everything, joy, awe, meaning. The fire burns lower now, its sparks rising gently into the night, and as the dancers collapse into laughter and rest, another kind of art stirs in quieter hands. Not movement, not sound, not paint, but something small, solid, held in the palm, a figure carved from bone, antler, or stone, shaped with patience and care, where the cave walls were vast and communal. These are intimate, portable, personal. The first figurines, born tens of thousands of years ago, shrink the sacred into forms you can hold, stroke, carry, and even bury. They are not just objects. They are symbols in miniature, myths you can touch. Archaeologists call them Venus figurines, though the name tells more about modern assumptions than ancient meaning. Found across Europe and Asia, they are often small carvings of women, wide hips, large breasts, rounded bellies, sometimes pregnant. Some are polished smooth from handling, others marked with red pigment, as though painted with life. The Willendorf figurine, carved more than 25,000 years ago from limestone, fits easily into a hand. Her features are stylized, her face absent, but her body radiates abundance. To hold her is to hold fertility, survival, hope. But not all figurines are human. In Holenstein's Stadel cave, archaeologists uncovered a figure carved from mammoth ivory, a human body with the head of a lion, 30,000 years old. It is one of the oldest examples of hybrid imagination. Half human, half beast. It is shamanic, mythic, a bridge between worlds. To carve such a creature is to dream beyond reality, to imagine beings that never walked the earth, but lived in story. With this lion man, humanity did more than represent. It invented. Why carve these forms? Perhaps as charms, fertility figures for women, hunting talismans for men. Perhaps as teaching tools, models to show children the animals they would meet, the roles they would take. Perhaps as gods in embryo, spirits made tangible. The exact reasons elude us. But one thing is clear. Figurines were more than decoration. They were embodiments of belief. Picture an elder, carving by firelight, flint flake scraping bone with steady rhythm. The others watch, children leaning close, breath held as form emerges. The curve of hip, the snout of beast, the swell of belly. Slowly the object becomes recognizable, uncanny. The elder lifts it, and the group murmurs. The figure is passed hand to hand, stroked, laughed at, prayed over. In that moment, art leaves wall and body and enters the hand. It becomes object, token, relic. And yet, humor lingers. Imagine a figurine carved with exaggerated features, hips absurdly wide, breasts sagging to knees. The group roars with laughter, children imitate, jokes abound. But beneath the humor lies respect. Even the comic figure carries meaning. Exaggeration sharpens symbol, makes fertility impossible to miss. The laughter binds group as tightly as solemnity, reminding all that art can play as well as pray. Many figurines bear signs of handling. Their surfaces are worn smooth, as though passed between fingers again and again. Some were carried far from where they were carved, suggesting they were treasured, even traded. Imagine a woman in labor gripping a figurine, praying for safe birth. Imagine a hunter stroking a lion-headed figure before setting out. These are not trinkets. They are companions, touched in moments of fear and hope, infused with meaning through use. And sometimes they were buried. Figurines found in graves suggest they accompanied the dead, perhaps as guides, perhaps as gifts, perhaps as protection. To bury a figure with a body is to send meaning beyond life, to ensure the spirit travels with story. In this way, figurines bridge not only human and animal, but life and death. The diversity of forms also tells us something vital. Art was not uniform. One region carved slim figures, another emphasized curves, another created hybrids. Each choice reflects not universal humanity, but local belief, local style, local identity. Just as ochre patterns distinguished tribes, figurines distinguished cultures. Art was not only creation, but declaration. We are us, not them. What is astonishing is the leap of imagination. To scratch zigzags is one thing, to paint animals is another, but to carve a hybrid creature, lion-headed, bird-bodied, human-limbed, is to invent what never was. This is fantasy, myth, the first monsters and gods. Here lies the root of later dragons, angels, demons. The figurine proves humans were not only observing the world, but dreaming beyond it. Consider the effort. Carving ivory requires patience, skill, endurance. A single figurine could take days, even weeks. To invest so much time in an object with no practical use is staggering, yet the effort itself is ritual. To carve is prayer, to finish is offering. The act gives meaning as much as the result. Some figurines show signs of pigment, red ochre rubbed into grooves. Others have small holes drilled, perhaps to string on cords, to wear as pendants. Art here was not only seen but carried, worn, lived. Identity became portable, a necklace of beads, a pendant of ivory, a figurine on a cord. Each said, "I belong to this people. I carry this story. I wear this meaning." And as with painting and dance, figurines trained memory. A child given a small carving learned to read symbol, to see beyond object, into meaning. They learned that art was not frivolous but sacred, not toy but teacher. Each figurine was a book without words, a scripture carved in bone. Even now, echoes remain. We still carve figures, still create hybrids, still exaggerate fertility, still stroke talismans for luck. We carry pendants, wear beads, treasure figurines, museums fill with statues of gods, saints, spirits, toys fill with action figures, dolls, idols of culture, the instinct to shrink meaning into object, to hold belief in hand, has never left us. So tonight as you lie in quiet, imagine yourself by firelight, watching an elder carve, shavings curl from ivory, dust gathers on hands, and slowly a shape emerges, a woman with wide hips, a lion with human arms, a bird with human eyes. You reach for it, feel its weight, its smoothness. You laugh at its exaggeration. You whisper to its spirit. You press it to your chest. And as you do, you realize you are not only holding art, you are holding belief, story, identity, myth. You are holding the first. The figurine rests in your palm, warm from fire and touch. But as the circle leans back into shadows, another kind of art begins. No pigment, no carving, no rhythm of foot or beat of drum, only voice, a single voice, low and steady, weaving words into the dark. Around the fire, eyes lift, ears strain, bodies hush, stories rise, fragile as smoke, strong as stone. In these moments, humanity invents its most enduring art, the story told in firelight. Imagine the elder clearing their throat. The flames crackle, sparks lift, and silence spreads like a blanket. Long ago, the voice begins. The world was nothing but water. Children lean closer. Hunters rest elbows on knees. Women pause in weaving. The tale continues. A giant bird dove into the water, brought up mud, and from that mud land grew. The earth was formed not by accident, but by intention, by being. Already, myth is alive. Already imagination orders chaos. The first stories explained why thunder rumbles, why the sun rises, why rivers flood. These were not lectures of cause and effect. They were narratives, filled with characters, motives, drama. The storm was a god, angry at neglect. The drought was punishment for forgotten offerings. The hunt failed because the stag spirit was insulted. In story, the world became legible. Mystery remained, but it was clothed in meaning. Stories also bound memory. A tale of a great hunt, retold, taught children how to stalk, when to wait, where to strike. A tale of famine, taught what not to do, which plants were safe, which rivers poisoned. Wrapped in narrative, knowledge endured. What could have been forgotten as fact lived on as legend. Memory survived in story, and stories soothed grief. When a child asked, "Where is my mother?" the answer came not in silence, but in narrative. She walks with the ancestors, hunting always, laughing always, waiting for us. When an elder died, their story was told again that night, their life woven into myth. In this way, death lost its finality. Story granted immortality if not to body, then to memory. Of course, humor was never far. Picture an elder solemnly describing a hero who fought a great bear, only for a child to interrupt, and the bear ate him. Right? Laughter breaks solemnity. The elder chuckles, amends the tale with playful exaggeration. Soon the story is part serious, part comic, teaching bravery while making the group laugh. Storytelling was never monotone. It was performance with room for wit and play. The act itself became ritual. Some stories were told only at night, others only in winter, others only during festivals. The timing mattered, the context mattered. To tell a sacred story in the wrong season was taboo, even dangerous. In this way, narrative itself created calendars, seasons, rules. Story was not only art, but governance, ordering when and how myth entered the world, and repetition mattered. A tale told once might amuse. A tale told every year became tradition. Every generation became scripture. Children learned the beats, knew when to gasp, when to laugh, when to hush. They carried it forward, repeating it to their own children. Story, like dance, existed only in telling. Its permanence lay in memory, in the rhythm of repetition. Some stories merged with images. A painted bison became backdrop for the tale of the great bull. A carved figurine became prop in a tale of fertility. The arts did not stand apart. They blended. Painting, carving, rhythm, story, each strengthened the others, forming tapestry of meaning. In this way, the cave was not only gallery, but theatre, stage for performance as old as humanity. Archaeological traces hint at this. Charcoal circles suggest fires burned in story chambers. Footprints cluster in spaces with paintings, as though listeners gathered in rows. Soot marks high on ceilings suggest torches were waved, perhaps to dramatize tales, casting shadows that moved with narrative. Though words are gone, their echoes linger in evidence of gathering, listening, retelling. Stories also created heroes, not gods, not yet, but humans elevated by memory. A hunter who saved the tribe becomes myth, his deeds exaggerated, his flaws erased. A mother who nursed children in famine becomes saint, her strength retold until it is larger than life. In story, ordinary lives became extraordinary, carrying lessons, ideals, hopes. Story gave immortality not only to ancestors, but to virtue, and with heroes came villains, tricksters, fools. Tales of selfish hunters who hoarded meat, warned against greed. Stories of tricksters who lied and failed taught honesty through laughter. Through narrative, morality sharpened. Art became ethic, story became law. To tell a tale was not only to entertain, but to guide. Think of the power in that dark circle. A story could lift spirits, soften grief, settle disputes. If a quarrel broke out, a tale might be told of ancestors who fought and made peace, reminding the group of precedent. If despair threatened, a story of survival rekindled hope. Storytellers wielded authority not by force but by voice. They were the first teachers, priests, poets, and children learned eagerly. They imitated voices, gestures, repeated lines. They played at storytelling, making up their own tales of talking animals and silly spirits. In this way, art reproduced itself. Story was not heritage locked in stone, but living practice passed like flame from torch to torch. Even now, we feel it. We gather in theatres, around screens, in living rooms, to hear stories. We hush at beginnings, lean forward at tension, sigh at endings. The impulse is unchanged. Stories explain, soothe, warn, unite. Whether about gods or galaxies, they feed the same hunger born at firelight, the need to know, the need to imagine, the need to belong. So tonight, as you rest, imagine yourself leaning close to the fire, eyes wide as the elder's voice rises. You hear of spirits who paint the dawn, of animals who speak, of ancestors who still walk. You laugh when the trickster stumbles. You shiver when the storm god roars. You sigh when the hero triumphs. Around you, the group leans close, warmed not only by flame but by story. You know, deep in your bones, that though the tale will end, it will be told again, and in that repetition, you will never be alone. The story ends, the elder's voice softens, and the fire sinks into glowing embers. For a time, silence holds, a silence not empty but thick with thought. Then, on the cave wall near the fading flames, you notice something small, not a painted animal, not a handprint, but lines, dots in clusters, zigzags repeated, chevrons etched in rows. They seem almost like writing, though no words exist yet. They are symbols, signs carved and painted long before alphabets, marks that carry meaning, not through image, but through abstraction. This is another birth of art, the birth of signs. Across caves in Europe, Asia, and Africa, archaeologists find these strange markings alongside animals and handprints. At Chauvet, clusters of dots hover above a painted rhino. At El Castillo, red discs dot the walls, some over 40,000 years old. At Lascaux, animals are accompanied by symbols, crosshatches, branched lines, rectangular grids. They are not accidents. They are deliberate, repeated, standardized. Someone decided that a dot could mean something, that a zigzag could stand for something unseen. In these symbols lies the seed of writing, of mathematics, of calendars. Imagine a hunter tracing 3 dots above a painted bison. He means 3 herds seen last spring. Another scratches a zigzag, meaning water nearby, or perhaps lightning. A line broken into segments might mark seasons. A spiral might mean cycle. The marks are not pictures but codes, agreed upon by group. To understand them is to share knowledge. To ignore them is to miss message. Symbol becomes communication, portable and lasting. This leap is profound. Animals and hands speak through resemblance. Symbols speak through agreement. They exist not in nature, but in mind. To create them is to invent language without words, to trust memory and meaning to abstraction. It is another threshold as radical as the first fire, as daring as the first burial. With symbols, humans declare we can make marks stand for what is not here. Picture a child watching an elder paint a line of dots beside a stag. The child asks, "What do they mean?" The elder replies, "They mean the hunt was good. Many were caught." The child nods, then tries the same. Soon children grow up reading and making marks. Symbols pass into tradition, not decoration, but code. Art begins to blend into proto-writing, into system. Humor, as always, intrudes. Imagine someone adding too many dots above a bison, boasting of hunts that never happened. The group laughs, teasing, "Your bison are fatter on walls than in the fields." In this way, even symbols invite exaggeration, jest, play. Yet, the joke proves the point. Everyone understands what the dots mean. Communication succeeds, even in mockery. Some researchers believe these cave symbols tracked lunar cycles. Dots and notches align suspiciously with phases of the moon, suggesting that early humans may have kept calendars. To mark time is itself art, but also science. If true, then cave marks are not only symbols but proto-almanacs, blending ritual and survival, myth and measurement. Others think the signs were clan marks, ways of saying, "We painted here, this animal belongs to our group." Still others argue they were ritual codes, reminders of chants or offerings. Whatever their purpose, the consistency across thousands of miles and centuries tells us they were not random. They were language in embryo, culture captured in shorthand. The act of marking itself was ritual. To scratch a zigzag was to affirm belonging, to copy the ancestors, to join tradition. Children copied signs long before they grasped their meaning, practicing as modern children scribble letters. Through repetition, meaning deepened. Through persistence, culture endured. Symbols became memory externalized, thoughts etched into stone. And these marks mattered because they lasted. Unlike rhythm, which faded with silence, or dance, which ended with exhaustion, symbols remained on walls long after voices were gone. To stumble into a cave and see dots and grids was to encounter ancestors directly, to inherit their knowledge without their presence. Symbols were communication across time, not just space. Think of the leap in imagination this required. To see 3 dots as 3 is not instinct, it is agreement, shared understanding. To invent symbol is to invent trust, trust that others will see what you see, mean what you mean. It is to create shared thought outside body, to extend mind into world. This is not only art, this is cognition, collective and enduring. Even now, we live by symbols. Letters on a page, numbers on a clock, emojis on a screen, all abstract marks, meaningless alone, powerful in agreement. They trace back to those cave dots, those zigzags, those chevrons. We inherit their leap. We extend their instinct. Every time we read or write, we repeat the birth of symbol. Symbols also blurred boundary between sacred and practical. A dot might mean herd, but also spirit. A zigzag might mean water, but also snake. The ambiguity was strength, not weakness. It allowed art to speak on many levels, to merge survival and ritual, to collapse world into pattern, meaning multiplied, deepened, thickened with use. Consider standing in a cave, torch in hand, staring at a painted horse crowned with lines of dots. You do not see random marks. You see code, message, story. You imagine ancestors chanting, hunters counting, shamans explaining. You realize you are not only looking at art, but at thought itself, preserved in pigment. You are reading minds across tens of millennia. And as always, children played. Small scratches in hidden corners suggest practice hands, clumsy copies of elders' signs. The act of copying was education, as important as learning to hunt or gather. To make symbols was to join adulthood, to master not only tools but meaning. To miss them was to remain outsider, ignorant of group's language. Even today we feel awe at symbols older than history. We stare at spirals in Newgrange, at notches on bones, at grids in caves, and feel their weight. They speak to us without words, whispering, we thought, we marked, we remembered. They remind us that culture is not only about beauty but about code, not only about image but about idea. So tonight, as you close your eyes, imagine yourself pressing dots onto a wall with pigment-stained fingers. You step back, see them aligned above an animal, and feel pride. Others will know what you mean, long after your voice is gone. The fire flickers, the cave breathes, the marks remain, and in that permanence lies the power of art. The first written whispers of humanity. The symbols fade back into shadow, their dots and zigzags lingering like a secret code. But art was not confined to walls or caves. It travelled with people, hanging from their necks, jingling at their ankles, glinting in firelight. Long before crowns and jewels, humans adorned themselves with shells, feathers, beads, bones, and teeth. This was art worn on the body, portable, meaning portable beauty. Jewelry was not just decoration. It was identity, memory, status, magic. Imagine a woman threading small shells onto a cord made from sinew. Each shell drilled carefully, polished smooth, strung with patience. She ties it around her neck, and suddenly her body gleams with the shimmer of the sea. The necklace says, I am part of this world. I carry its beauty. Another hangs teeth of prey at his chest, the clatter of them marking each step. The teeth say, I faced the hunt. I survived. Every ornament is statement, every bead a word in the silent language of adornment. Archaeologists uncover these treasures in burials tens of thousands of years old. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, tiny shells drilled for stringing, stained with red ochre, date back over 70,000 years. In Europe, perforated teeth, claws and beads are found beside skeletons. Some graves glitter with hundreds of ornaments, others with none, hinting at difference in status or role. Jewelry was not merely play, it marked position, meaning, belonging. The act of wearing adornment was performance. In firelight, beads glowed, feathers shimmered, pendants swayed. Movement animated jewelry, making it alive. A dancer's beads rattled with rhythm. A hunter's teeth clacked in sync with steps. A child's shells jingled in laughter. Jewelry was not static. It was kinetic art. Music and sculpture fused onto the body. Adornment also served as protection. A claw worn at the throat might carry the spirit of the animal, guarding the wearer. A shell might shield against drowning, a feather against storms. People believed objects carried power, and to wear them was to bind that power to self. Jewelry was amulet, talisman, armor of meaning. And of course, humor slipped in. Picture a young man proudly stringing too many feathers, strutting before the group. Someone teases, "Careful, you'll fly away in the wind." The group laughs, and the feathers gain new nicknames. Even in seriousness, adornment invited vanity, and vanity invited teasing. Humans have always mocked those who flaunt too much, and jewelry was as much target for jokes as for admiration. Adornment bound groups together. One clan wore beads of bone, another favored shells, another carved pendants of stone. To meet someone wearing your pattern was to recognize kin. To see a different style was to recognize stranger. Jewelry became marker of tribe, early uniform, symbol of belonging. Even today, we wear colors, crests, logos, descendants of shells and teeth. Some ornaments traveled far. Shells from the coast found in inland graves, beads carved from exotic stones carried hundreds of miles. These objects prove early trade, exchange, gift-giving. Jewelry was currency of connection, linking distant groups through shared adornment. To wear a shell from far away was to carry story, proof of contact, proof of reach. The time spent making jewelry was itself ritual. Drilling a hole in a shell with flint took patience, sometimes hours. Stringing beads required care, preventing breakage, arranging patterns. Each necklace was investment of labor, and that labor gave it weight. To give jewelry as gift was not only to hand over object, but to hand over time, effort, devotion. In some burials, infants are found covered in beads, their tiny bodies swathed in ornaments. Perhaps these were gifts of protection, perhaps honors of family, but their presence tells us that jewelry was not mere vanity. It was sacred. To adorn the dead was to prepare them for journey, to arm them with beauty and power. In this way, jewelry bridged life and afterlife, adorning souls as much as bodies. Adornment also deepened ritual performance. Shamans painted with ochre wore rattling shells, their movements accompanied by sound and shimmer. Hunters entering circle dances wore teeth and claws, embodying spirits of animals. Jewelry was not only private ornament, but public theatre, enhancing ritual with sound, color, presence. In this way, art of body merged seamlessly with art of belief, and jewelry taught pattern. Children strung beads, learning rhythm of color, size, order. To arrange shells red, white was to learn early symmetry, to recognize beauty in repetition. Art trained eye as much as hand, shaping aesthetic sense. This education in adornment prepared minds for larger patterns. In painting, in symbol, in myth, jewelry was teacher of beauty, carried on cord. Some ornaments bore deliberate marks, incised lines, etched symbols, grooves filled with pigment. A shell was no longer only shell, but canvas for design. Jewelry became both object and artwork, layering meaning upon meaning. To wear such a piece was to carry story as well as stone. Even now, the instinct persists. We pierce ears, hang pendants, wear wedding rings, exchange bracelets. We still say through jewelry what words cannot. Loyalty, love, mourning, pride. We still believe some objects protect, some attract, some honor. The impulse to adorn has never left us. It is as old as story, as old as symbol. Picture yourself now in that ancient camp, threading shells with sinew, tying necklace tight. You wear it into circle dance. Feel it rattle as you stamp, shimmer as you turn. Others smile, nod, recognize your ornament as sign of kinship, of belonging. Later, when you lie down to sleep, you hold the necklace in hand, fingering each bead. It is not only decoration, it is memory, power, art, and in its glow, you feel not only human, but connected, adorned by meaning itself. So tonight, as you drift into rest, imagine the jingle of shells, the clatter of teeth, the shimmer of feathers in firelight. Imagine the laughter of friends, the reverence of ritual, the comfort of carrying beauty against your skin. Jewelry is not vanity, it is humanity. The need to carry art not only on walls or in caves, but on ourselves. It is art made flesh, art made companion, and it still glitters, still rattles, still whispers its meanings into the dark. The beads clatter softly as you lie down, but even in stillness they whisper of something greater than beauty. For art, in these early ages, was never only adornment, never only amusement. It was power to paint an animal, to carve a figure, to wear a claw, to stamp a dance. Each was more than expression. It was spell, magic, an attempt to bend the world. Art was not separate from survival. It was the means by which humans shaped reality with symbol and gesture. Picture a hunter kneeling before a cave wall. He paints a bison pierced by spears, its blood flowing in ochre streaks. The animal is not yet caught, but the image is. In his mind, by fixing the bison on stone, he fixes it in fate. The hunt will follow the painting. This is sympathetic magic, the belief that art creates reality, that what is done in symbol will be done in flesh. It is not game, it is strategy. To paint is to hunt already, to begin victory with pigment. We see this across caves. Animals drawn with arrows lodged in their flanks, wounds painted bright red. These are not random doodles. They are rituals of control, attempts to bind prey with pigment, to ensure success by acting it out in art first. To modern eyes, they are masterpieces. To ancient eyes, they were also tools, weapons of the spirit. The cave was not gallery but arsenal, filled with spells drawn in ochre. The same belief infused figurines. A lion-headed man carved from ivory was not toy but spirit. To hold him was to hold the lion's power, to carry ferocity into battle, to tame danger into symbol. A pregnant Venus was not statue alone but charm of fertility, coaxing womb to swell, child to thrive. To carve was not pastime but invocation. The figurine was prayer hardened into bone. Adornment too was magic. To wear a claw was to bind the predator's strength to your own. To paint skin red was to carry life's blood visibly, warding death. Even the simplest act, scratching a zigzag on stone, was spell, a way to trap lightning in symbol, to call rain, to shield from storm. Art was never idle. It was always charged with intention, and with intention came ritual. No painting without chant, no carving without offering, no dance without purpose. Imagine the group before a hunt. They gather in cave, torches blazing, painting fresh animals, stamping, chanting. The air thickens with smoke, pigment, sweat. The hunters strike at painted beasts with spears, imagining success. By the time they leave, they already feel victorious. Whether or not the ritual truly influences herds, it transforms hunters, their courage steady, their fear burned away. In this sense, art does create reality, if not in prey, then in people. Humor, of course, sneaks in even here. Imagine a hunter painting a bison, only to be teased by another. That looks more like a fat rabbit. Laughter breaks tension, eases fear, yet when the hunt succeeds, the teasing painter grins smugly. See, my rabbit bison brought luck. The joke itself becomes magic, proof that play and belief intertwine. Archaeologists have found figurines broken deliberately, buried in pits. These were not accidents. They were sacrifices, symbols destroyed to release power. A figurine of prey, shattered, might mean, we break the beast's spirit. A figurine of woman broken might symbolize childbirth, splitting body to release life. The act of breaking was as meaningful as the act of making. In destruction, magic was complete. The blending of art and magic also shaped memory. A painted wall was not only image but altar. To return to it was to return to power. Generations gathered before the same symbols, repeating rituals, layering belief upon pigment. Over centuries, the cave itself became sacred, not for shelter but for spells. To enter was to step into temple, into theater of magic. Consider too the role of the shaman, painted in ochre, rattling with beads. They danced until trembling, their body itself artwork. With each gesture they acted myth, mimed, hunt, embodied spirit. The community watched, believed, felt. The shaman's performance was not entertainment, but enchantment. They were living art, living magic, vessel of transformation. And magic was not only for survival, it was for life's mysteries. Birth, death, storm, sickness. A child ill, paint a figurine, bury it beneath hearth, dance above it, call health back. A drought long, carve zigzags, sing of rain, scatter shells to mimic drops. Art was language with gods, contracts with spirits, bridge across fear. Even small acts bore magic. A child tracing spirals in dust might not know meaning, but elders whispered, spirals call cycles, spirals call return. Play became spell, play became tradition, tradition became belief. Through repetition, even idle gesture gained power, sanctity. And if the magic failed, if the hunt faltered, the rain withheld, the sickness worsened, then the art must be redone, stronger with greater offering. More pigment, more beads, more dance. Failure was never art's fault, but humans, they painted wrong, forgot chant, offended spirits. Art's power was unquestioned. Its effectiveness lay in precision, devotion, repetition. The belief that images shape reality still lingers. We hang lucky charms, wear crosses, tattoos, pendants. We paint saints and gods, light candles before them, whisper prayers. We stage plays to purge fear, watch films to transform mood. We still believe, even if we call it psychology, symbolism, therapy, the instinct is unchanged. Art alters world, alters art. Think of your own life. A wedding ring is not metal but vow. A photograph is not paper but memory. A lucky shirt is not fabric but spell. We laugh at ancient hunters stabbing painted bison, yet carry our own symbols with equal fervor. Art as magic never ended. It only changed form. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, imagine kneeling in a cave, torchlight trembling, ochre bowl in hand. You paint a stag, proud and tall, then pierce it with lines of red. Behind you, the group chants, feet stamping, voices rising. You thrust your spear at the wall, hear echo thrum like heart. You believe the hunt is already won. You laugh when a child adds silly horns. You sigh when shaman trembles. You cheer when the dance ends. And as you leave the cave, the painting remains. The spell remains. The belief remains. Art is not passive. Art is magic. The painted spells still gleam faintly in the cave, but as you step out into the open air, you realize something new. The marks on walls, the beads around necks, the dances and chants do more than conjure luck or honor spirits. They define who you are. To belong to a group is to share its art, its style, its symbols. Art is not just magic now, it is identity. It tells you which clan you walk with, which ancestors you honor, which spirits you trust. Without it, you are rootless, suspect, alone. Picture two groups meeting at a river. Their hunters eye each other warily, hands on spears. But then one woman steps forward, beads rattling against her chest. Her necklace is strung in a pattern of shell and bone, the same pattern worn by the other clan. Recognition sparks, they lower spears. Nod. The pattern says we are kin, or at least not strangers. Here, art speaks louder than words. The necklace is password, emblem, passport. It declares identity across silence. Even the simplest symbols can become markers. One tribe favors spirals, another zigzags, another dots. Painted on caves, carved on tools, etched on bodies, these marks bind people together. To copy them is to declare loyalty. To reject them is to risk exile. A spiral scratched on bone is not decoration. It is signature, belonging pressed into matter. Humor creeps in here too. Imagine a boy trying to paint his clan's spiral but fumbling, making a crooked circle. The others laugh, tease him, call it snail shell. Yet even in mockery they accept him. He tried, he belongs. The error itself becomes inside joke, another thread binding group in art. Perfection matters less than participation. Identity through art also shapes ritual. Dances differ between tribes. Rhythms distinguish one circle from another. A visitor who stamps wrong step reveals themselves instantly. Flutes play certain scales in one valley, different in another. Storytellers emphasize different heroes, different spirits. Each choice is identity codified, tradition performed. To join is to learn steps, songs, signs. To resist is to remain outsider. Archaeologists see this in material traces. Shells from the same species drilled differently by different groups. Patterns consistent across distances. Ornaments buried in graves, matching local style. These are not accidents, they are traditions passed down like names, carrying identity through generations. Jewelry is not only pretty, it is badge, uniform, declaration of art, and in identity lies memory. To wear bead or mark is to honor ancestors who wore the same. Children grow up not only imitating art, but imitating identity. They inherit style as they inherit genes. Art becomes lineage, continuity, across centuries. To abandon tradition is to sever chain. To repeat it is to remain rooted. This identity could also divide. A group with spirals might distrust those with zigzags. Meetings at rivers might end, not in peace, but suspicion. Difference marked as danger. Art unites within, but also excludes without. To belong is gift, but also wall. The earliest borders were not walls of stone, but styles of art. Consider a burial mound, filled with beads of one pattern. The dead are covered, honored, adorned in tribal style. When another group stumbles upon it centuries later, they see immediately these were not our people. Art speaks across death as clearly as across life. It is flag flown on grave, banner of belonging that endures longer than flesh. Identity through art also creates pride. A hunter painted in tribal style feels braver. A dancer wearing group's feathers feels taller. Belief is strengthened by belonging. Art amplifies courage. not only through symbol, but through solidarity. You are not alone. You carry your people's mark, and in solidarity lies joy. Imagine a festival where groups gather, each displaying their ornaments, their dances, their songs. They compare, they laugh, they boast. One clan's rhythm is mocked as slow, another's beads as gaudy, yet beneath rivalry lies recognition. All share the same impulse, the same art. Humanity becomes visible to itself in these gatherings, identity refracted but shared. Children too learn identity through play. They scratch spirals, string beads, copy dances. They are taught not only how to make, but how to belong. Even mistakes are corrected gently, folded into teaching. Identity is patient, carried in art as much as in language, absorbed through repetition, until it feels instinct. Some identities merge through marriage or alliance. A woman brings beads of one style into another clan, mixing patterns. A child grows up wearing hybrid adornments, dancing blended steps. In this way, art evolves, identities mingling, but the urge to mark difference never vanishes. Each new hybrid soon hardens into new tradition, new boundary. Art shifts, but its function endures. It says who you are. Even today we see this. Tartans in Scotland, tattoos in Polynesia, calligraphy in Arabia, face paint in tribes across Amazon. Style binds groups, defines belonging, distinguishes us from them. Fashion, logos, uniforms, all descendants of shells and spirals. We still mark ourselves through art, still declare identity in color, pattern, form. Identity through art also comforts. In strange places, surrounded by unfamiliar faces, to see your symbol is to feel safe. A spiral scratched on wall, a bead worn by stranger says, "You are not alone." Art carries home wherever it travels, stitching community across distance. It is memory portable, belonging visible. So tonight as you drift into quiet, imagine yourself at a river, meeting another group. You grip your necklace nervously, unsure of their intent. Then you see one of them lift their shirt to reveal the same pattern of beads, the same spirals scratched on shell. Relief washes through you. You smile. They nod. Spears lower. The river is crossed not by bridge but by art. Identity binds. Identity speaks. Identity endures. The necklace at your throat still jingles softly, but now the circle stirs again. Fire crackles. Shadows leap, and someone steps forward painted in ochre and ash. Feathers rattling, beads clattering. They sway, stamp, mutter in strange tones. Their eyes widen, their breath quickens, their arms tremble. The group hushes, waiting. This is no ordinary hunter, no ordinary elder. This is the first performer, the shaman actor, the one who steps between worlds. Through voice and movement, they become more than themselves. They become spirit, ancestor, animal, God. Imagine their gestures, one moment crouched like lion, growling deep in throat, the next leaping like deer, hands antlered above head. Their voice shifts, high, low, broken, booming. They stumble, laugh, weep, scream. The group gasps. Some children clutch parents, others giggle. They are not seeing their neighbor anymore. They are seeing a story come alive. This is performance, ritual, theater, art fused into one. Performers did more than mimic. They embodied. To paint stripes across face was to become tiger. To wear feathers was to become bird. The body was costume, the voice mask. In this way, shamans acted myths, retold stories, channeled spirits. The performance was not fiction but transformation. The audience did not suspend disbelief. They believed. They felt spirits step into performer, ancestor speak through lips, God move through arms. The shaman was healer, storyteller, actor, priest. When sickness spread, they trembled in trance, maimed battle with spirits, collapsed in sweat, then rose proclaiming cure. When death came, they swayed, moaned, played role of guide, leading soul across worlds. When hunt approached, they growled as prey, fought as hunter, acted out struggle until outcome felt assured. Every performance was more than show, it was intervention, and humor again played its part. Imagine a shaman in trance, growling like bear, when suddenly they sneeze. The solemnity breaks. The group laughs. The shaman chuckles too, then rolls the sneeze into act. The bear spirit snorts. Even mistakes became performance, woven into story. Humor was not interruption but fuel, keeping group engaged, reminding them the sacred can laugh. Archaeological echoes suggest these performances, masks carved from bone, antlers worn on heads, costumes adorned with beads and feathers, caves with soot marks on ceilings, as if torches were waved dramatically, figures painted half human, half animal, like actors caught mid-transformation. These are traces of performance, remnants of ritual theatre long gone. Performers commanded power. To step into role was to step above ordinary. The shaman who became lion was lion. The one who trembled with spirit's voice was spirit. Communities trusted, feared, adored them. They were actors, yes, but actors believed to be vessels of divine. Their performances carried authority, shaping decisions, rituals, myths. Children must have imitated them, stumbling into roles, exaggerating gestures, giggling through lines. In this way, performance was taught, rehearsed, passed down. Acting became tradition. Each shaman trained by copying, improving, inheriting. Theatre was not born in Athens, but here, in circles of fire, in caves of shadow, in bodies painted with ochre, performance was also collective. The shaman led, but others joined. Dancers mimicked prey. Hunters mimed chase. Children acted animals. Together they enacted myths, not passively listening but participating. The line between performer and audience blurred. The circle itself became stage. The group itself cast. Performance was not for entertainment, but for belonging, for belief. Consider the trance states described in later cultures. Shamans drumming until collapse, whirling until dizzy, inhaling smoke until visions came. Early performers likely did the same. Their bodies altered by rhythm, their minds lifted by exhaustion. What they saw in vision, they acted in ritual. Their performance was not lie but revelation, their gestures not invention but report. The group believed because the performer believed, and performances taught. To act out trained hunters, to act out birth-prepared women, to act out myths taught children. Knowledge embodied is knowledge remembered. Performance turned story into muscle, memory into motion. It was school as much as ritual, teaching through spectacle. Even now, echoes linger. Stage actors, priests, teachers, all channel role larger than self. We still paint faces, wear costumes, act myths. We still believe in power of performance to transform, to heal, to teach. The impulse is unchanged. Every play, sermon, ritual is descendant of shaman's trembling dance. Identity too sharpened through performance. Each clan had its styles, its myths, enacted differently. To join a performance was to declare belonging, to repeat heritage. To refuse was to reject group. Performance marked tribe as surely as beads, uniting through shared spectacle. Imagine the awe of child watching first performance, the shaman trembling, the masks glowing, the chants rising. Their eyes widen, heart races, imagination soars. They laugh at comic gestures, cry at solemn ones, shiver at strange voices. They grow up mimicking, practicing, waiting for day they too will act. Performance ensures continuity, carrying culture through bodies and breath, and when performers died, they were remembered in story as much as myth itself. He danced like storm, an elder says. She spoke with lion's voice, another adds. The memory of performance itself became legend, blending human and spirit into history. Performers live twice, once in act, once in story. So tonight, as you rest, imagine yourself painted in ochre, feathers rattling, stepping into firelight. The circle waits, eyes wide. You crouch, growl, leap, tremble. You laugh when children giggle. You sigh when chants rise. You weep when spirit moves. You are not yourself anymore. You are animal, ancestor, God. The fire roars, shadows leap. The group gasps, and when the act ends, breathless, sweating, you collapse. The circle cheers, chants, claps. You are shaman, actor, performer. You are bridge between worlds. The shaman's trembling body sinks back into the circle, sweat glistening, breath slowing. The feathers settle, the beads fall silent. Yet the power of performance lingers in the air, heavier than smoke, brighter than fire. The cave around you does not feel like stone anymore. It feels like temple, like stage, like womb. Humans once huddled here only for shelter, but now it has become something more, ritual space. From rock and earth, we have shaped theatres for the sacred. Picture the walls again, animals racing, handprints glowing, dots and symbols clustered like stars. In torchlight, the walls pulse with life. But notice too how deep into the cave these paintings lie, how far people crawled carrying pigment and flame. These were not spaces of convenience. They were chosen deliberately, sanctified by effort, turned from hollows into sanctuaries. The cave was not home, it was holy. Archaeologists at Chauvet and Lascaux found that people rarely lived in these caves. Few traces of everyday life, no hearths, no piles of bones, no scattered tools. Instead there are torches, pigments, footprints circling walls, soot clinging to ceilings. The caves were not kitchens but cathedrals, not homes but ritual theatres. People entered them to meet spirits, not to escape rain. Imagine the approach, a line of figures bearing torches, chanting as they descend into darkness. The cave swallows them, each step echoing. The air grows cold, damp. Then suddenly, paintings bloom on walls. Animals leap in flame. The group gasps, hushes. This is not mere space, it is other world. Entering is right itself, threshold between ordinary and sacred. And in those spaces, ritual unfolds. Hunters paint prey, shamans dance, flutes sing, children press hands. Each act amplifies the others, weaving sound, image, movement, symbol into one. The cave becomes canvas, stage, altar, theatre, all at once. Here, humans do not simply live, they transcend. They step beyond survival into meaning. Even humour finds place. Imagine a dancer slipping on damp stone, crashing into wall, smearing paint. The group bursts into laughter, the solemnity broken. Yet soon someone quips, the spirit wanted that mark. The accident is absorbed, turned into omen, folded into ritual. Even in sacred space, humans laugh, joke, improvise. Ritual does not erase play, it elevates it. Some caves even shaped sound. Chambers with strange echoes were chosen for painting. A clap resounds like thunder. A chant multiplies into chorus. Music becomes magnified. Voices doubled, tripled, transformed. The cave itself performs, joining ritual as partner. Architecture is not yet built, but humans already sense space can shape experience, that walls themselves can sing. Over time, ritual space extended beyond caves. Stones were raised in circles, great megaliths hauled and planted. These too became theatres of sky and earth, aligning with sunrises, solstices, stars. Ritual left darkness for light, moved from hidden walls to open fields. Yet the principle remained: ordinary space marked, sanctified, made more than itself. Ritual needs stage. Humanity creates, but caves carry special intimacy. To crawl into narrow chamber, to gather in flickering dark, to paint where no sun enters. This is womb, heart, underworld. To be there is to be reborn. Ritual space here is not only theatre, but transformation. Emerging from cave after ritual is like emerging from birth canal, new, renewed, alive. Children surely felt awe. To step into painted chamber, torches blazing, chants echoing, was to step into myth itself. They carried memory forever, retelling, reenacting, ensuring continuity. The cave was textbook and temple, teaching and sanctifying simultaneously. Through ritual space, culture carved itself into generations. Identity too sharpened. Each group had its caves, its stones, its sacred grounds. To enter was privilege, to paint was honor, to chant was belonging. These spaces marked us as surely as beads or spirals. They rooted identity in landscape, embedding myth in geography. To lose a cave was to lose self. To guard it was to guard soul. Archaeologists sometimes find broken torches abandoned in chambers, footprints crossing clay floors, half-finished paintings. These remnants speak of gatherings long gone, rituals interrupted, perhaps tragedies remembered. Yet they remind us that ritual space was not abstract. It was lived, walked, painted, touched. Real bodies filled these halls. Real voices echoed. Real laughter and tears vibrated stone. The sacred was physical, sensual, embodied. And even now, we build ritual spaces. Cathedrals with stained glass, mosques with echoing domes, temples with carved pillars, theatres with curtains. We still gather in places set apart, places made holy by art and architecture. The instinct persists. To step into certain spaces is to step into other world. From caves to cathedrals, the lineage is unbroken. Consider your own memory of entering a vast church, a silent temple, a theatre before show begins. Breath slows, voice hushes, awe stirs. This is cave feeling, ritual space instinct, older than civilization. We still respond to space as sacred, still let architecture shape spirit. We are descendants of torchbearers entering chambers painted with bison. So tonight, as your breath slows, imagine yourself entering such a cave, torch in hand. You crawl through narrow passage, your heart thudding. Darkness thickens, then opens into vast chamber alive with paintings. Hooves pound on walls, hands glow, dots shimmer. Around you, chants rise, dancers sway, flutes echo. The cave hums, breathes, transforms. You kneel, press hand to wall, close eyes. For a moment, you are not only human, you are part of cosmos, part of story, part of sacred theatre older than memory. And when you leave, stepping into starlight, you carry that space inside you forever. The cave breathes behind you as you step once more into starlight. Your torch burns low, its smoke curling upward, vanishing into sky. The night is cool, the ground damp with dew, and the fire's echoes, chants, claps, laughter, tears, still ring in your ears. You carry the walls with you, the handprints, the animals, the symbols, the beads, the flutes, the dances. They cling to you not as memories of ritual past, but as reminders that the rituals themselves never truly ended. For even now, in this modern age, humanity still paints, still sings, still dances, still adorns. The legacy of art is not relic, but rhythm, still pulsing in your chest. Consider the first scratch on stone, zigzags etched into ochre. Those simple lines grew into alphabets, scripts, digital code. Today you scroll through symbols no less abstract than the dots and chevrons of caves. Each letter, each emoji, each logo is descendant of those first marks. The leap into symbolism was never reversed. It carried us through clay tablets, papyrus, books, screens. The signs have changed, but the instinct is the same, to fix thought outside body, to make marks speak for us. Think of the first painted animals, bison galloping across walls. Their beauty still speaks, but their purpose lingers too. We still paint to honor, to capture, to shape the world. Portraits of leaders, icons of saints, murals of heroes, all are echoes of those bison, fixing presence in pigment. Even photography, our modern cave wall, traps life in image, holding it still for memory and myth. Every snapshot on a phone is heir to the flickering torch revealing a painted horse. The flutes of bone, fragile and hollow, still sound in orchestras, lullabies, jazz solos, street corners. The breath of those first players hums in every whistle, every recorder, every flute, and the principle that sound can carry more than beat, that melody can pierce spirit, has never faded. We still hush when notes rise, still cry at songs, still feel ourselves lifted beyond body by music. The lineage of bone and breath has never broken. Dance too remains. Stadiums shake with stamping feet. Weddings whirl with spinning skirts. Funerals sway with solemn procession. We still circle, still stamp, still surrender body to rhythm, even alone in rooms. We sway to unheard music, twirl for joy, shuffle to pass time. The instinct is too deep to erase. Our ancestors stamped circles into clay floors, and we still stamp circles into hardwood concrete, earth. Movement remains our oldest language. Jewelry still jingles, glitters, speaks, from gold crowns to woven friendship bracelets, from wedding rings to protest pins. We adorn ourselves with meaning. We still drill shells, though now we call them pearls. Still string beads, though now of glass and metal. Each piece says who we are, what we honor, whom we love. Adornment remains identity made visible, and the performers, they live on in actors, priests, teachers, musicians. Anyone who dons costume, raises voice, takes role, larger than self, is heir to the shaman trembling in firelight. The stage may be theatre, pulpit, classroom, or serene, but the act is the same, embodying story, channeling spirit, guiding community. We still crave transformation through performance, still hush for spectacle, still weep when others act our fears, our hopes. Even spaces remain sacred. Cathedrals, mosques, temples, concert halls, theatres, each designed to hush us, to awe us, to carry us beyond ordinary. When sunlight floods stained glass, when chant echoes beneath domes, when curtains rise on stage, we feel the cave again. Architecture still manipulates light, sound, space to craft experience. The ritual space is changed, but the impulse to set aside ground for sacred art never left us. The legacy of art is also its duality, play and prayer, humor and awe. Our ancestors laughed at clumsy spirals, teased over crooked dances, chuckled at squeaky flutes. We still laugh at bad paintings, botched performances, silly costumes. Art has always carried joy as well as reverence, reminding us that to be human is to balance solemnity with play. This balance is what made art endure. It was never too heavy to break us, never too light to lose us. And through all of it, art carried identity, Spirals and beads once marked clan. Today, logos, fashions, music tastes, and hashtags mark communities. We still declare belonging through style, still recognize strangers as kin by symbols worn. The impulse to say, "we are us" through art is unchanged, only multiplied in complexity. Identity is still painted, strung, performed, worn. But perhaps the deepest legacy is belief. The painted stag pierced with arrows, the figurine of lion-headed man, the beads covering a child's grave, all reveal a conviction that art shapes reality, carries meaning, bridges worlds. We may call it magic then, psychology now, but the effect is the same. We use art to heal, to hope, to survive. It remains our spell against silence, our prayer against chaos. Look at the stars above. Our ancestors saw animals, gods, ancestors in their patterns. We still do. Constellations named and retold, mapped into story. Science explains them as suns, but we still crave myth. We paint them on ceilings, chart them on screens, wish upon them as though they hear. The artistic gaze at sky has never dimmed, and art remains the thread across death. The handprints in caves whisper, "We were here." The photographs on our shelves whisper the same. We cannot keep bodies, but we keep their images, their songs, their marks. Art is immortality, memory preserved, voice beyond silence. To create is to defy forgetting. That defiance still fuels us. Even now, as you lie here, surrounded by walls not of stone but of plaster, by light not of torch but of bulb, by sounds not of flute but of hum of city or sigh of night, the legacy of art surrounds you. Every mark, every note, every dance, every ornament is descendant of caves. You live in their echo, breathe in their inheritance. Art is not past, it is present, pulse, marrow. So tonight, let yourself rest in that knowledge. Feel the scratch of stone, the smear of ochre, the breath in flute, the stamp of foot, the shimmer of bead. Hear the shaman's voice, see the animals leap, feel the handprints press against yours. You carry them all, not as distant ancestors but as kin. Their art lives in you, and your art will live in those after. The fire burns low, the stars wheel above, your breath slows. You belong to the older story, the story of humans who could not live on survival alone, who needed beauty, rhythm, image, song. You belong to the circle of hands, the chorus of dancers, the hush of listeners. You are part of the legacy of art. And as you close your eyes, the cave grows quiet, the fire dims, the world softens into sleep. Art cradles you as it has always cradled humanity. So drift now, slowly, gently, into sleep. Let the story close its gates behind you. The siege is over, and your dreams are safe within these walls. Good night. Sweet dreams.